Don't you hate it when you pull up to a parking lot of Tesla Superchargers that is almost empty, but it is surge pricing timing, so you end up paying more per kilowatt hour when there's no one there to use them. I hate this, and it's happened to me many times even on this road trip I am currently doing. Notably, I pulled up to Barstow, California, 120 stalls, world's biggest supercharger, video coming on that pretty soon here, and yeah, there was almost no one there, but I still had to pay surge pricing because it was a busy time of day. Well, Tesla is apparently rectifying this. They are always evolving their supercharger pricing. So in a very recent article posted to X from the Tesla charging account, they talk about some of their history with pricing and a new evolved model that I'm pretty excited about. First, let's talk history. The year is 2016, actually right when I graduated college, and the Model S's first refresh hits the streets. But 2016 is also when they officially introduced kilowatt-hour based billing across the board, which is the correct way to do it. Tesla says, since 2016, we have advocated with regulators globally to allow kilowatt-hour based billing versus time-based billing. This is the fairest way to pay for exact energy used. We also never add a charging session fee, as such fees lack transparency and mask higher per kilowatt hour costs. As they noted, this is the correct way to do it. There are other chargers I've visited in some states that maybe don't regulate it so much, where they charge for time of use, which is totally unfair for someone who pulls up with a Bolt that charges very slowly versus someone who pulls up with a Taycan. Same charger with a 9-minute charging session could result in vastly different amounts of energy delivered. Yeah, not fair. Then jump ahead to 2017, the next year, when they introduced idle fees. Actually, technically it was a blog post in 2016, December, so I don't know if it was released at like Christmas time 2016. Anyways, Tesla notes here in 2017, we introduced idle fees to address customers leaving their vehicles plugged in at busy sites after fully charging. This increased the availability and improved the experience for all users. Idle fees have since become an industry standard, but they're actually not always in effect, which is pretty frustrating. There's been so many times where I pull up to a 4-stall Electrify America, which that's the first problem, 4 stalls instead of like 12 or 16 or even 8, and someone's been plugged in there for 3 hours because they went to a movie and they don't understand how charging your car works. Idle fees really should be a thing everywhere, across the board. Tesla's been doing them now for coming up on 8 years. Then spring ahead a couple years to 2019, where they introduced the 80% state of charge limiter, optionally. In 2019, Tesla implemented an automatic 80% state of charge limiter at busy sites. The final slower 80 to 100% charge, which yes, is much slower, even though the rest of the charging curve is not that impressive, but it can often be skipped without impacting travel, which is true. A lot of people charge so that they arrive at their next destination with like 20 or 30%. I've met people at Superchargers who do this because they're afraid of letting it get to the bottom fourth, which is crazy because you only really see peak speeds at the bottom fourth. But that's how some people travel. But this will free up superchargers, and then customers can manually override this if needed. That's huge, having manual override, because there are times where you might really truly need that last 20% of the battery, especially in a fairly efficient car like my Model 3, where the last 20% is still a sizable amount of mileage that can get me easily to an additional city beyond maybe the next supercharger. Or let's say you're out of spec trying to do a range test where you have to charge to 100%, and you might be at a slightly busier supercharger, but hopefully not taking up a stall from someone, and you just need to increase that limit. Then 2020, yikes, what a year. On-peak versus off-peak pricing. In 2020, Tesla launched on-peak and off-peak pricing based on estimated times when superchargers are busy. This reduces the cost of ownership if you can charge off-peak and ensures availability during peak demand. It also increases total utilization per supercharger, making charging more affordable. This approach has now become common across fast charging networks. This makes sense and is mostly related to the news today, which we'll get to in a second. Skip ahead to 2023, congestion fees. So in 2023, Tesla simplified pricing with congestion fees, combining idle fees and the high state of charge inefficiency. At busy sites, congestion fees apply when charging is complete or nearly complete. This principle is being adopted across the industry. Customers are notified on their touchscreen and app and receive a 5-minute grace period. Tesla's goal is to avoid profiting from congestion fees, which exist solely to improve availability when a site is getting crowded. So that 5-minute grace period is good to have. It's something they also used back at that 2016-2017 idle fee implementation. But congestion fees also hopefully help, say that 5 times fast, the slew of traffic, or maybe preventing a slew of traffic. There's a lot of just knowledge that needs to be shared on how cars charge, and it is amazing to me still here in 2025. I see and meet people who charge often above 90%, and they complain about how long it takes to charge a car. There are still news articles and journalists who talk about how EVs take an hour plus to charge, which means they'll never replace gas cars. It's wild. So then we get to today's news. Live supercharger utilization. Tesla states, today we are piloting on-peak and off-peak pricing based on live supercharger utilization rather than estimations. Praise the Lord. The average price remains unchanged, but this live feedback loop improves accuracy. This corrects off-peak pricing during times of congestion or on-peak pricing when superchargers are plentiful. You'll always see the price before your session begins, and prices do not change mid-session. A small-scale pilot is launching at 10 sites and will expand based on feedback and success. 10 pilots! Cool. We don't know where those are, although I can guess one is probably in Davis, California, which is northeast of the Bay Area, based on the screenshots Tesla provided to show what this new live supercharger utilization thing is going to look like. If anyone finds any of the other 9 locations, maybe someone could find one, post a little video, we'd love to share it. And then affordability is also discussed. Tesla states they are 30% cheaper than other fast charging options on average for Tesla customers. So I guess that compares Tesla charging to maybe Electrify America and IANA. I'm not sure if that takes into account the EA pass situation, which buys down the rate. By the way, Tesla has that for non-Teslas on their superchargers, which also buys down the rate. But it gets into nuances and complexities when you compare chargers versus non-native cars. But for Tesla cars on Tesla superchargers, this really is impressively cheap. But like I said, you can go to an EA, and if you have EA Pass, which is only $7 a month, unlike Tesla's account thing, which is like 12 or $13 a month, to buy down Tesla rates, buying down the EA rate also makes it substantially cheaper, but still expensive, which is why I think it's increasingly important to have efficient electric vehicles, especially if you're road tripping. If you're taking a Rivian on a road trip, you're not going to be seeing cheap charging. In fact, it's probably cheaper to take a Toyota Prius, which is a gas car. Hybrid, but still gas. And then Tesla says 2025 should be the biggest year for supercharger openings yet. Cool, love to see it. They've always been huge. They've always been leading the charge. Pun annoyingly not intended. But it remains to be a huge factor for why people do buy Teslas. And ironically, now it seems to be a selling point for even non-Teslas. I've literally heard people going into Ford dealerships and Ford employees selling them a Ford Mustang Mach-E or something because of Tesla's supercharger access. Wild. So that's the news. Max from the Tesla supercharging team added that in his own Twitter post, Tesla has been consistent in its pricing principles as shown in old blog posts. And then he shows the blog post from 2016 where they introduced the idle fees. And they'll be monitoring customer feedback and effectiveness before wider rollout. Potential wider rollout. So what we know is there are 10 pilot sites that will be testing this whole supercharger utilization live thing. But we don't know for sure if it'll roll out to everything else, but I think it probably will, and I hope it does. Because it is really annoying to have this surge pricing, which I actually originally thought was maybe based around utilities. Like, for example, my house has a time of use surge pricing, so if I charge between 3 and 7 p.m., it's like almost triple the cost as if I just wait till after 7 p.m. to charge. That's my own at-home electricity rate, but I kind of initially assumed these supercharger premium pricing times were based around that. But it turns out it was just kind of an average of supercharger utilization, surge pricing of people using them. This is very fresh news, by the way, so I haven't seen a whole lot of feedback, but some initial comments. Someone asked if we could have a cheapest supercharging route in the route planner. I think that'd be kind of cool. Like if you're not like in a hurry and want truly optimal speed to get somewhere, maybe you could say, oh, I want to pick cheapest charging. And then your car might do a slightly different, maybe slightly worse route, but get you somewhere with a little bit less overall cost. That's valid. I'm curious how Route Planner would default to these chargers just in general. I've had some issues with Route Planner in the recent months and years. It's great, like it genuinely is a good Route Planner, but it's not perfect and it's not completely customizable. And it is annoying to me how you can do some things in the Tesla app on the phone and some things in the Tesla route planner in the car, but they don't always talk to each other and they're not the same experience. And I've had multiple times where I'm on a road trip and Tesla defaulted me to like a V2 supercharger when there was in fact a V3 one right down the road. And I was at a low enough state of charge that would have benefited from a V3. I just don't understand quite the logic and how they sometimes dictate the route planning stops. So what do you guys think? Supercharging is already a huge selling point, like I said, to Teslas and even to non-Teslas. It's a huge, impressive ordeal. Yes, I know we've all talked about recently how Teslas still don't have class-leading charging. You have some of the EGMP cars, Taycan, of course. Pretty much everything in China seems to have better charging curves and all that. But this is not about that. This is about just access, efficiency. Supercharging stops are good, but still not amazing. Like, I'll have a whole video on the Barstow location, which basically says why it kind of sucks as a charging stop. But at least they have chargers, and if you're trying to just get somewhere, nothing's worse than not being able to plug in quickly, efficiently, and at something with availability. So I'm glad supercharging is exploding continually. Well, hopefully not actually exploding, but it's continually rolling out more and more. And as they said, this year should be a new record year. That being said, there's still many times where I'd probably go to Iona instead of a Tesla Supercharger because of the location, the features, especially at a rechargery. But regardless, the supercharging team has been through a lot. You know, we kind of had that layoff thing and then some rehiring, and they're still building out locations, hopefully full-on V4s here. I do tip my hat to the Supercharger team. Speaking of hats, if you want this hat, shopped out at specstudios.com, and we'll see you later.